Y'all ever seen one of these? This is a gift from Sarah Brooks. You know what it is? It's a builder's cubit. Like, what is this guy talking about? It's a really useful tool for building. It also has rabbinic measurements on it. Don't know if that was intentional, like a hand's breadth, a tefach. This can really help you when you're building your sukkah. If you need to measure how much space is open in the schach, you can only have 3 tefachim and all together. So this is really helpful for that. It's got an amma. An amma, if you read the story of Noah's Ark, amma is the measurement that's primarily used. It's about 1.5 feet, so it's here. Okay, thanks. When folks ask me about my sabbatical, I have come to reflexively say, without even a second's thought, that the world is so much worse now than it was before I left in early February. In the places I love the most, my forever homes like Florida and Los Angeles, and especially DC and Israel, maybe honestly everywhere except for my immediate family's actual home, and this place, Addis, it all feels pretty exhausting. About a week ago, Dan Senor invited Rachel Goldberg Poland to join the Call Me Back podcast and teach some High Holy Day Torah. Towards the end of the show, Dan posed a question to Rachel that I selfishly appreciated. He said, "It just feels like things are spiraling, and people want the rabbi to come with wisdom and vision and processing. This is the moment." And then he said, "It's an insanely unrealistic expectation we thrust upon rabbis. So instead, I'm going to thrust it upon you, Rachel. What would you advise rabbis to think about as they're writing their sermons?" he asked. And her answer was A+ Torah. Hirsch's grieving mother is also a master educator. And the question honestly just made me feel seen. I don't think I've ever felt so lost with High Holy Day sermons. And it's probably not lost. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by the world right now, and I know that I'm not alone. So I'm going to do today what I'm pretty sure is the only thing that I was ordained to do. I am going to teach you the entire Torah in one sermon. And I'm going to tell you what it might mean for us right now. I always start teaching Torah by teaching Talmud. 1,500-year-old Jewish collage filled with thousands of pages of stories and laws and arguments and commentaries and disagreements and everything between. This passage comes from Tractate Shabbat. It goes like this. It once happened that a person who was not Jewish was pursuing conversion and came before the great pre-Talmudic sage, Shammai. And he said to Shammai, "How many Torahs do you have?" And Shammai replied, 2. The written Torah, the Torah shebichtav, the Torah, and we have the oral Torah, the Torah shebal peh, the Torah that comes out of the mouth. Those are the commentaries and the prequels and the spin-offs. So the potential convert said back to Shammai, "I believe you about the written Torah, but not about the oral Torah. Convert me on the condition that you teach me only the written Torah, the Torah, no thanks on the rabbinic editions." And Shammai did a very Shammai thing. He scolded him and he shooed him away. Quite determined, the potential convert sought out Shammai's intellectual partner, the rival rabbi's synagogue, Hillel, who upon hearing the same question, immediately converted him. A similar incident is recorded next. Somebody not Jewish comes before Shammai. He said to him, "Convert me on the condition that you teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one leg." And Shammai, who's still crotchety, amps up his negative response, and he takes the builder's cubit that was in his hand and he chases him away. This is the red lightsaber. Harsh? Yes, but to be honest, it was an absurd demand. But the undeterred potential convert still presented himself before Hillel, who immediately converted him. and then offered up an answer to the chutzpahdik demand. He taught the whole thing in one line, one of them on one foot. And he taught him a line that's not even in the Torah itself. Da'alech shnei lechavrech lo ta'aved. That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. Zohi kol haTorah kula ve'idach perushahu zil gmor. That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. That's the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it. We'll come back to this. The story's not over, though. It gets, I don't know, weirder, I think is the word. There's a third incident. It's similar to the first two. Another was passing behind the Torah Academy. From out back, he heard the teacher's voice reciting a verse from Exodus 28. These are the vestments they are to make: a breastpiece, an ephod, a robe, a fringed tunic, a headdress, and a sash. And the passerby was like, ooh, shiny. Who gets to wear all that bling? And they said to him, it's for the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. And he said to himself, I'm going to convert so that they will make me the high priest. He came before Shammai and said, Shammai, convert me on condition that you make me the high priest. Builder's cubit. Guess what happened when he came to Hillel with the same demand? Seeking not just Jewishness, but seeking the priesthood, an impossibility. What did Hillel do? He converted him. And then he said to this new Jew, they only appoint as royalty one who knows the protocol of royalty. Lech limod tachsisei malchut. Go, learn the protocol of royalty. Hillel was a brilliant pedagogue. You're in, now go and learn. You'll come to understand. Like so many of our Talmudic stories, it raises more questions than answers, but two elements strike me as worth discussing here on Rosh Hashanah. The first is the short Torah that Hillel taught on one foot. That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. You all know it. It might not be in the Torah like that, but it's the golden rule. Our version in the positive is ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and you shall love your neighbor like yourself. Hillel's version probably comes from the book of Matthew. Shh. Or the book of Tobit, but nobody knows that one. The golden rule. But with a healthy dose of hubris, which I have, I would have taught a different piece of Torah had I been posed with the same question. I do actually think there's one message the Torah is trying to communicate to all its readers, from the Israelites tapped by God to establish a totally unique civilization in the ancient Near East to you and me right here. And it is this: avoid idolatry at all costs. Ve'idach perushahu zil gmor. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. I need a second clause. I'm no Hillel. Avoid idolatry at all costs, because should you fail to avoid this one thing, should you turn toward the shiny idols, you'll lose me, God, and yourselves to the seduction of coercive and destructive power. You'll degrade like you yourselves were degraded in Egypt. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. And I'm on sturdy ground here. Maimonides codified in his 12th century Mishneh Torah, mitzvat avodat kochavim keneged hamitzvot kulan. The commandment forbidding the worship of idols is equivalent to all of the other mitzvot. To further argue my point, I'll need to deliver on my promise to teach you the entire Torah in this sermon, but with one caveat. As you listen and as you learn, you being you and me being me might instinctively analogize the Torah to something specific. You'll think I'm talking intentionally about America or Israel or Trump or Hamas or Putin or the Ayatollahs or anti-Semitism or the far left or the far right or the Republicans or the Democrats, progressives, MAGA, you name it. The Torah is the Torah. It's relevant, always and ever, but we cannot let it become the idol. If you find yourself going there to your typical corner, fight the urge to lock yourself in to your own ideological bias, please. Here we go, the Torah from the beginning. God creates the cosmos. I'm really doing this. God creates the cosmos, our world within it, and God calls each element tov, good. After God creates humanity, the sum total of the project is named tov me'od, very good. We, humans, change the equation. God's excited about us and our potential. You and I are created, B'Tselem Elohim, in God's image. But humans are complicated. From the very beginning, we disappoint God with our imperfections and our mistakes and our propensity to violence. The Torah calls this ra, bad, or ra'at ha'adam, human badness. From Adam to Eve in the garden, to Cain murdering his brother Abel, from Noah's entirely corrupt generation to the generation that tries to climb to the heavens on the Tower of Babel, it is rough going. And after a few attempts at starting again, God finally changes course, and instead of focusing on all of humanity, too big a project, God chooses one family to separate out from the surrounding cultures, one couple willing to leave it all behind. That's Sarah and Abraham. And the story now becomes tribal, but with humanity still in mind. Ve'escha l'goy gadol, v'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. I will make you, Abraham and Sarah, a great nation, and all of the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. The rest of Genesis is this family's very human story, broken and beautiful, seeking to fulfill God's promise, one God, one land, one new religion, eventually creating a humanity worthy of God's gift of being created in God's image. At the end of Sefer Bereshit, Genesis, the family, our family, now the children of Jacob, the children of Israel, Jacob's new name, settle into Egypt, where they thrive off Goshen's lush land, all permitted and encouraged by a Pharaoh loyal to his visionary dreamer, Joseph, one of Jacob's 12 sons. The second book of the Torah, Sefer Shmot, Exodus, begins generations later. A new Pharaoh with no fidelity to Joseph takes the throne. Deeply fearful, he imagines this growing group of foreigners a threat to his kingdom, therefore him. He publicly demonizes and dehumanizes them. He applies abusive force, and he finally enslaves them. God eventually notices the degradation of the chosen family and begins the process of redemption with Moses and Miriam and Aaron. They lead a heroic escape, happy Passover, and now redeemed. The Israelites fully morph from a first family into a formerly enslaved people, destined for autonomy and sovereignty in the land God promised back in Genesis to Sarah and Abraham. But it's not smooth, not by any stretch. One gets the sense that Moses needed to petition God multiple times to convince God to stick with the Israelites. God would have abandoned the Israelites, stubborn and stick-necked, Am Kshei Oref. God would have abandoned the Israelites to begin all over again. How do we know this? Well, God says it many, many, many times. Moses, let me be, that my anger may blaze forth against them, that I may destroy them. Ve'eseh otcha l'goy gadol. And I will make of you, Moses, a great nation. And if it sounds familiar, it's exactly what God said to Abraham. God wants a great nation. In many ways, God sees this generation of Israelites in exactly the same way God saw Noah's generation, too far gone to save. But once again, God changes course. Say what you want about the often jealous and angry God of Torah. This majesty can hear criticism, be persuaded, and pivot. And that pivot happens in two ways. The Torah immediately introduces a new technology for divine human communication and ritual, the Ohel Moed and the Mishkan, a tent of meeting for God to talk to the Israelites. The mountain was too distant, and a tabernacle for the people to bring their offerings to talk to God. The hope was that this intimacy might steer them away from the temptation to seek other gods and build more golden calves. The second pivot is almost always unnoticed in the Torah, and I don't even think you're going to believe me when I tell you about it. God gives Moses a new and different set of 10 commandments. There are two sets of 10 commandments, and I'm not talking about Exodus and Deuteronomy, Shamor v'Zachor b'dibor echad. I mean There are two different sets of 10 commandments. The first ones, the ones Moses shattered in a fit of rage, they strongly prohibit idolatry and they beautifully command Shabbat, but they are otherwise quite universal, essential laws for any society. No murder, no stealing, no coveting. The second set is recorded in Exodus 34. The second set commands us to observe the three pilgrimage festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. They prohibit cruelty in the name of religion, a feature of the ancient Near East. We may not cook a kid in its own mother's milk. We may not cook a baby goat in its own mother's milk. They instruct us to give every firstborn and all of our first fruits to God. We own nothing. We are not gods. There's only one capital O owner. The new set of 10 commandments provide a curriculum for escaping the magnetism of shiny, powerless things. The final three books of the Torah continue our formative story and heavily push the anti-idolatry narrative. Sefer Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, the book of priests and sacrifices, is a hyper-detailed manual for how we are to use the sacrificial altar. It contains the holiness code, Sefer Kedoshim, which is the path to our necessary separateness. Maimonides asserts that the entire book of Leviticus is essentially an intricate tool for weaning the Israelites off of idolatry while they were in the desert. The book of Numbers, the book of wandering, the 40-year period of time between Egypt and Israel includes lots of troublesome stories, maybe none as problematic as you will find in Numbers 25. When the Israelites revert back, they join the residents of Shittim to worship Baal Peor, their god. But God stopped starting over. Crisis, pivot, keep going. And finally, Sefer Devarim, Deuteronomy, a constitutional convention. Moses' grand retelling of our story to the next generation, the Israelites who would actually have to construct the society that God so craved for humanity. In his book-long speech, Moses reviews the laws given at Sinai and in the desert, and he also adds some previously absent laws from the first 4 books. His additions fit pretty neatly into Dr. Micha Goodman's thesis, Deuteronomy is about the power of limited power. The book of Deuteronomy is about the power of limited power. Deuteronomy is in many ways to the rest of the Torah what the second set of 10 commandments is to the first set of 10 commandments. I'm going to say that again. Deuteronomy is in many ways to the rest of the Torah what the second set of 10 commandments are to the first set. Repetition alongside critical additions to better guide the people through the difficult obstacles ahead. Deuteronomy does not have to anticipate what would happen in the land. Deuteronomy comes from a time in which all of the bad things already happened after the Israelites crossed over into the land. It can reflect back and plug in some of those holes. In almost every instance in Deuteronomy that God or Moses demand the Israelite people follow Torah, in almost every instance we are told to follow Torah, there is also a warning to avoid idolatry. Re'ei anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha u'klala. See, this day I put before you a blessing and a curse. The blessing if you obey God's commandments. The curse if you turn away from the path I command. Lalechet acharei Elohim acherim. And follow other gods. In the Torah, the opposite of following Torah, its commandments, chukim umishpatim, is not doing commandments. The opposite of following Torah is chasing idolatry. Moses ends his Deuteronomic speech in pretty much the same way God begins the Torah. With chaim and mavet, life and death, and tov and ra, good and bad. Re'ei natati lifanecha hayom et ha'chaim v'et ha'tov v'et ha'mavet v'et ha'ra uvacharta b'chayim. See, today I've put before you life and good, death and bad. Choose life. Choose good. Choose Torah. In 2015, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote a book titled Not in God's Name, Confronting Religious Violence. He writes, the Hebrew word Baal is the name of the chief Canaanite god. It means to own, to possess, to exercise power over someone or something. That, Rabbi Sachs says, is the Bible's ultimate idolatry. To possess, to exercise power over someone or something. The Torah, at its core, is a giant, evasive maneuver to avoid the persuasiveness of idolatry, the seduction of one human wielding power over another who is made in God's image. Idolatry is equal to all of them. Interestingly enough, the Rambam, Maimonides, and other poskim, other Jewish legal decisors, also codify that kol hamishamer Shabbat kehilchato afilu oved avodah kochavim mochlim lo. Anybody who keeps Shabbat according to its laws will be forgiven if they are also pursuing idolatry. Why is that? Because a traditional Shabbat is a total removal from trying to control and create in the world, from trying to coerce others. Shabbat is a step back. And if one is keeping Shabbat traditionally, it is impossible to also be an idolater, one who is trying to coerce. Impossible might be an overstatement. Shabbat is the antithesis of idolatry. It is a release. Idolatry is the shiny things for us are the map back to Egypt. V'heshivcha Adonai Mitzrayim. Go astray, and I will return you to Egypt. That was the last curse Moses names in Parshat Kitavo. Go astray, and I will lead you back to Egypt. Ve'idach perushahu, zil gemor. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. What does it mean? It means that any culture, any government, any religion, any freedom movement, any political party, any activist network, any law enforcement agency, any house of worship, any military that sees human beings and treats them as a means to an end, not an end in and of themselves, that's called chasing the shiny things, and it's Egypt. Any leaders who never regret, they always project and deflect, but they don't know who to protect. Power that detains and deports regardless of threat. Any achieved power that reflexively excludes rather than includes. Power that silences to subdue dissent, that misrepresents to coerce consent. Those who rationalize for the ones who terrorize, that celebrate death, that martyrize to avoid their own demise. The ones that demonize rather than humanize. No matter who it is, from where it presents, from whichever team, it has likely surrendered to the very same idolatry that enslaved our people long ago and threatens us still today. All of the us's. Avoid idolatry at all costs. The Torah demands it over and over again, because should you fail to avoid this one thing, should you turn towards those shiny idols, you'll lose God and yourselves to the seduction of coercive and destructive power. You'll degrade like you yourselves were degraded in Egypt. Ve'idach perushahu zil gemor. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. There's a postscript to the Hillel Shammai convert story. The rabbinic authors imagine a moment in which all three of those new Jews found themselves in the same room, likely the Beit Midrash after Minyan gets out. And they said, these three, the impatience of Shammai almost drove us from the world, and the gentleness and humility of Hillel brought us under the wings of the divine presence. Tachat kanfei hashchina. Hillel lived his Torah. He brought the castaways home and made them feel as if they were nestled into the divine embrace. He began with the act of kindness, which was the end in and of itself. And Hillel was right from the start. Avoid idolatry, and then that which is hateful to you, well, you're far less likely to do it unto others. It's the same Torah, because one, idolatry, always leads to the other. Ve'idach perushahu zil gemor. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn. Back to the very, very beginning. Rachel Goldberg Poland's message for the Jewish community is actually the message I want to leave us with. She said, we are at a moment in the Jewish story, in history, Israel's story, and our own personal stories. We are in a crisis moment. But what do we do with this crisis, she asked. The modern Hebrew word for crisis is mashber, but the biblical mashber means birthing pains. Because when you are in that moment of crisis, bodily crisis, she said, where you feel that you cannot take it, that you're being broken, sometimes that's the labor pain. And just ahead, God willing, is the rebirth and the light. And we must go toward that light, she said. We have no other option. And I would just say to everybody, all of us, we are all together, all feeling that. She said, I hope people don't feel alone in this crisis, in this moment of mashber, because we're all in this together. Shana Shetikva, may it be a year of hope, she finished. Rachel's Torah is also the end of the Torah. At the precipice, the land in sight, not yet there, but so close. Something's going to happen, but nobody knows quite what it will be. We've been here before, this unknown, because it's where we began. Hayom Harat Olam. Today, maybe a new world really will be conceived. Who's to know? Rebirth, crisis, pivot, always hunting the light. And then we go back and we read it again. Bereshit bara Elohim. Out of chaos, God created. So grab hold of your Sarahs and your Abrahams. Grab hold of Miriam and Moses. Grab hold of Hillel. Take Shammai too. We need that guy. We did not erase him. Don't forget to hold tightly. Please don't forget to hold tightly to the complicated new generation. They're going to be the ones building whatever it is that emerges. They will be the ones that sustain our future. Ve'idach perushahu zil gemor. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn, or as Rachel Goldberg Poland would say, go and do. Shana tova, shana shetikva.